So it's come to our afternoon keynote session. And to lead the session, we are very pleased to have Kamil Zacharski. Kamil is a Senior Director, Identity and Access Management Engineering and Application Support at Royal Bank of Canada. And Kamil leads and manages the technology research, planning, design, development, and implementation of diverse and highly complex identity access management systems used across RBC enterprise. And Kamil's career spans nearly 20 years across a variety of industries with progressively senior leadership roles supporting technology and cybersecurity initiatives. And Kamil's keynote topic is very interesting. It's called, Are We There Yet? Kamil, all yours.
Thank you, Brian. Such a flattering introduction as well. Yes, truly, are we there yet? First and foremost, thank you all for joining me here today. Today's summit has been an exciting one, filled with amazing speakers and content, and yet more to come. Let's explore this existential question of, are we there yet, from the perspective of some real world experiences of our identity guy. So the adventures of Identity Guy. Our Identity Guy's story begins in 2001. He's asked to create an application that will manage accounts in LDAP servers. Our Identity Guy, or just Guy at this point, is a software developer, and this is his first real-world experience with identity management, account management, LDAP servers, and security in general. He works in a relatively small IT department for a higher education institution, so he's the guy for the entire project. Now, being fresh out of school, he's excited and gets right into it. Requirements gathering, documentation, design, and then, of course, the best part, which is writing lots of code. This is what he was born to do. Testing goes a bit slow because his users are busy with their day jobs, and we know that that never happens in IAM projects. Requirements change a lot, and this makes the project seem to run forever because they change their minds. Key stakeholders go on leaves, lots of challenges with actually getting this to production and delivering something of value. So what to do? So our Identity Guy convinces his manager to freeze the feature set and really encourage the stakeholders to accept the minimum feature set that meets the requirements so they can go forward. And voila, finally they go live. And then after this being in production and successful, feature requests come flooding in. Our young guy adds all kinds of goodness. Dynamic data lookups, integration with the ERP database to drive automation around the good things in identity management that are important around managing temporary workforce, disablement of accounts for those users that are no longer with the organization. Another key aspect of this is things such as integration with the mail servers, setting up automatic out-of-office notifications for those users that have left the organization. This is important because the workforce interacts with a huge customer base, and that's the students. And the students need to know that they can no longer communicate via email with that particular professor that they may have had. By this point in time, our young guy is the identity expert, the go-to guy, and he gets to work on more cool stuff. SSO integration between webmail, calendar, and learning management systems. Thin compute stuff, platform integration with the LDAP servers to allow students to leverage those kiosk type approaches in the hallways when they need to check their schedule and check their mail between classes. And then comes a password self-service platform. This new feature set in this platform around password self-management for the entire population of 120,000 users is a huge step for this organization around their security posture. Prior self-service password management utilities came with the webmail client, calendaring client, and they really lacked in enforcing history, complexity of passwords, etc. This is really something that comes out in bettering the security posture of the organization. Then the organization gets dragged into the world of Microsoft technology. This, of course, comes with the need to integrate Active Directory into the environment. Now, much older, wiser identity guy at this point asks himself some good questions. How do I integrate this now different server and identity platform into our environment? Is it right for me to extend this homegrown platform to integrate Active Directory into the identity management lifecycle? And these are excellent questions, because as the technology becomes more heterogeneous, we know that challenges come up. After assessing this, he concludes that there might be a better way of doing this. And this is where he embarks on the journey of working with off-the-shelf commercially provided identity management platforms. Our identity guy integrates these two IAM platforms, leveraging that existing LDAP server as a central repository, driving automation workflows. Active Directory is fully automatically managed, leveraging the off-the-shelf product, driving automation, and masses rejoice. Our identity guy realizes that this field is exciting, and he embarks on the journey beyond this home base. He gets to work with many platforms that on projects that expose him to how complex heterogeneous environments can be integrated with tooling, which brings with it the potential for speed, scalability, and consistency. Now, what happens next? Obviously, our identity guy now embarks on a journey beyond this identity management, and he takes a look at some really new things. Although he was in a relatively straightforward and simple IT operating environment, the complexity of managing multiple directories, especially as they become heterogeneous, clearly manifested itself. And this especially becomes exasperated when a lower stack integration takes place. Active Directory is a great platform, but a lot of its components were proprietary and still are to this day. Things can get tricky and challenging to maintain, especially when you deploy homegrown solutions. Through his travels across industries and organizations of varying size and complexity, our identity guy discovers all kinds of IAM goodness. Large enterprise environments that have typically grown through acquisitions pose some really amazing IAM challenges. One of his past experiences has to do with watching a large group of business users leverage 2 and sometimes even 3 different workstations throughout the course of a business day, 3 different accounts to log on to those machines with, and in excess of 30 application accounts to access business applications with. Needless to say, the user experience is not a great one, and security-wise, not a great approach and not a great situation to find themselves in. Straightforward, easy to use access management, especially around access certifications, proved to be ridiculously difficult and was a consistent source of challenges. Integration was tough because applications were often proprietary. Access data was not easily extracted, not easily understood. And access presentation in business terms posed a challenge because many of those access entitlements, permissions, and definitions were derived in technical terms. Business users have no idea what we're talking about. But wait, there is more. Business roles. We knew it wasn't going to be easy, but I don't think anybody imagined how difficult this would actually be to do well. And this is a great concept because it has the potential to make access reviews and certifications, as well as access provisioning, really business friendly. Many of these initiatives aimed too large of a goal and had very, very filled outcomes. The question around what our business users have access to and had access to was really difficult to answer. It typically ended up in heavy manual driven processes, lots of attestation done via email and spreadsheet, really not a great user experience overall, neither for the IAM practitioners and the people having to deal with that data, nor for our end users who were frustrated by the amount of manual review they had to do. Now, here's a good one. What do your IT users have access to? That's a question that was naturally answered by one word: everything. And talk about a security nightmare associated with that type of a setup. Application and service IDs really historically have not been managed well. The life cycle of those IDs, the tracking of ownership, especially when ownership went through change, when applications changed or retired, a lot of those credentials just directly managed in code, as opposed to centrally managed. And this was a difficult position, again, both for the application developers who had the difficulty and the challenge of complying with standards or having to deal with those credentials in the first place, but also security-wise, not a great position, because the accounts are typically highly privileged, and therefore, if disclosed and compromised, can be a source of headache for the organization. As you can see, for a while there, things really were not in a good place. So what happened next? Well, some really smart people began making changes and advocating for better support for security and IAM in particular. And this took a lot of work. Some good frameworks were created that then enabled the build out of technologies and processes that really many of them reside on this slide. And the aim here was twofold: improve security and aim for a better user experience overall, while enabling business. And these three pillars really are important aspects of where IAM has been progressing from and towards. As a result, today we have some really good principles and frameworks and tools that enable them to be realized in truly technical environments. Some good examples of this are the Zero Trust framework. You've no doubt heard that mentioned multiple times today. And it's an important underlying concept that has the potential to drive really beneficial outcomes. Dr. Zero Trust, if you attended his presentation today, you heard him say, and you heard him show statistics around how Zero Trust has been effective in enabling not just security outcomes, which are important, but the business outcomes that are derived from their implementations. Identity governance administration, again, moving away from the horrible experiences associated with doing those things via email and spreadsheets, and moving to tooling that's a little bit more intuitive and can normalize and present data in business-friendly terms. Externalized authentication, some authorization as well. Externalized authentication has now been relatively commonplace. Authorization, although coarse-grained authorization is quite commonplace today via, for example, Active Directory group membership, fine-grained authorization has eluded us. I think for us to do it well in a centralized manner. You heard hopefully David Lee's presentation where he talked about authorization for APIs and microservices. Those same concepts, I think, can be realized across IAM more broadly. Should be an area of focus for us, because this will be important in enabling the next generation of IAM approaches and tooling. Federation and SSO are now also quite commonplace, widely and broadly supported by applications, and this is also a great outcome as to where we are today. Privileged access management, another key component of a good IAM program. The value and the requirements are well understood, whereas maybe previously the resistance was there. But I think as a community of users, as well as security and technology practitioners, we certainly realize that a privileged access must be protected in an effective way. And this goes beyond just being compliant with audit or regulatory requirements, which is great to see. Secrets management, I touched on application and service IDs previously, and this is that same area of concern. The management of secrets although what I like to term a younger sibling of privileged access management as a whole, really came to the forefront as we realized that cloud and automated application lifecycle management was really bringing out the need to do this well in a centralized manner, to enable better security, but also enable our application developers and engineers to do the things that they want to focus on without having to worry about securing those highly privileged credentials. And it goes beyond just credentials. Encryption keys, API keys, and so forth, certificates, all of those things can be managed more effectively and outside of the application code base. Speaking of cloud, there are many opportunities to doing this well, but we still seem to struggle a bit. We mentioned, a number of speakers today mentioned breaches that are associated with the cloud journeys for many enterprises. And that's a fact of life. There is learnings there that need to be realized. Unfortunately, they come in the form of breaches, and I think we can do that better. What's giving us trouble there? Potentially the scale, potentially the speed, but there are good principles that are being put in place, and this is a very promising sign. And this is around the principle of designing security from the beginning into these solutions and applications. The cloud providers have come a long way in enabling the tooling in their environments. We need to be able to take advantage of them. So, what do we need to focus on now? Many of us still say that identity is the new perimeter. I think from my perspective, where I sit today, identity is the perimeter. I don't think this is new. The number of aspects that I've put on this slide, from my perspective, these are foundational pieces into enabling a much broader, a much bigger set of things that we need to focus on. But these pillars, in my mind, will enable us to take advantage of those other things. Things like AI and machine learning could easily be on the slide, but I believe that they will be pieces that are built on top of the foundational components here. So, broad adoption of the zero trust model. Again, this relies on nothing is trusted, everything must be explicitly authenticated and authorized. Excuse me a second. And all of that stuff must be done securely. Access to data must be done securely. This has picked up steam in recent years, has garnered a lot of attention. Not a new concept, but many of the goings on in recent time in technology and security, and IAM in particular, have really brought it to the forefront. Now, why is this taking time for us to adopt? Because it's more than just tooling. It requires an organization to adapt to this new way of thinking. And it's no longer a boundary between the internal environment and the external environments. It is now all of this compute as a whole. So our frameworks, internal frameworks, our policies and standards need to be updated to ensure that this is now adopted more broadly across the entire technology and process environment. By the way, Zero Trust isn't just for your workforce. It is also for your customers and your third-party partners, because again, the environment is, the operating environment is now this whole rather than very compartmentalized and fragmented. Passwordless authentication, really important in reducing risk associated with these static credentials that are passwords. Breaches are countless that are associated with passwords. You've heard those stats before, and to me, passwordless is enabled by a couple of other things to make it really effective, and that's adaptive authentication and continuous authentication. And why that's important is because passwordless also takes advantage of those things. Number one, adaptive authentication, and adaptive MFA is a part of that, is realizing the context and the ultimately authentication and authorization in IAM is meant to protect access to a particular piece of data. So why is adaptive and continuous authentication important? Because logging onto a system might be a much lower and require a much lower level of assurance than once you've logged into that system, transferring $1 million to an external account. And that's where continuous authentication takes place, in realizing that you're now trying to perform an action that requires that higher level of assurance and allows you to, what we commonly refer to as, step up in your authentication methods and ensure that you are truly authorized to perform that transaction and should be allowed to perform that transaction at that time. Machine identity management. At a time when we create and destroy more machines than ever before in an automated fashion, this is really important to do well. Foundational capabilities, and really an important aspect of enabling Zero Trust as well. We need to be able to manage and monitor this at the same speed that it is created. And that means automation, of course. To me, this is shaping out to be a cross between IGA, so Identity Governance Administration, and Privileged Access Management. Of course, that encompasses secrets management as well. And the principles, the more modern principles of PAM, just-in-time access, dynamic and short-lived credentials, and of course, key and certificate management. And again, integrating these security controls into the tooling that builds this infrastructure and spins it up and down is really important, because if we don't do that, we will hold it back. Last but not least, parachutes. This is an area of recent interest for me personally, and something that kind of eluded me for many years. And these are the concepts associated with responsible technology. And specifically for me and around IAM solutions, where I'm really focusing in on this is creating solutions that are accessible to all users, revolving around accessibility, meeting accessibility requirements, diversity and inclusion as well as part of this realm. And really, to me, this speaks volumes in ensuring that our solutions are accessible and usable by all of our users. And we stop accepting solutions that do not meet those needs. So, are we there yet? The existential question for us. Well, as you may have deduced, our identity guy still has lots to do and lots to learn. Now, why is it that we're not there yet? I think this is inherent in our field and our area of expertise. The IAM domain transcends security, technology, and the value that we bring, and especially in today's world, is tremendous. So we need to adopt and we need to integrate with it, and we must not be troubled by it. The level of change and the new technologies that come out, I think we need to embrace that and really leverage it to our advantage. Bring the value forward. and IAM in particular has a key role to play. Now, here's the challenging part. Of course, as technology enables us to do better things security-wise, and IAM in particular, the maliciously inclined members of our society have that same technology available to them. And that's where we need to adopt, we need to keep step, and we need to make sure that we leverage these things to our advantage in that ongoing battle. The road ahead, to me, is quite exciting. And IAM, from my perspective, has come a tremendously long way in a relatively short period of time. So I say keep calm and identity on. That's it for me. I think we'll have a look at whether there are any questions in the chat. Okay, we've got a question, excellent question here. Where do you see the industry is going in the next 1 to 3 years? So I think, again, I'd like to reiterate the foundational components that I mentioned definitely need to be there. And I think many of them are being implemented today. I think we should continue on that path. I think automation is going to continue to scale up, and that's really important for us to keep track of and be mindful of, in that we cannot hold that back, we cannot stop it, and we need to use it to our advantage. And that's one of the most important components. I think if I had to maybe make a dangerous prediction here, is really working around putting in more controls up front. So let's take maybe access certification as an example, one that we all love, I'm sure. Why can't we enforce access in an ongoing basis? So right from the onset, when that access level is requested and approved, it shouldn't change unless it's authorized. Maybe that's the way that we can prevent the ever-growing over-permissioning of access and the burden of ongoing attestations, and maybe move to a more preventative model around what we have access to, rather than a detective model that access certifications drive. Why is IAM so difficult to do well and succeed? In my opinion, I'll handle this briefly because we are running out of time here. Sufficient and unwavering stakeholder support, and I don't just mean executive sponsor. I mean the entire partnership of the IAM team that's actually implementing the program, application owners, business users, etc. They really need to be part of this program to make it successful. And number two is data. This typically boils down to data quality and integrity. As the old adage says, garbage in, garbage out, and that is exactly what we see in IAM time and time again. So really is going to manifest itself in automated detection and automated processing of identity and access management in the future. Thank you very much for joining me. I think we're about to close. Really appreciate you spending the time with me. Enjoy the rest of your day here. And if you want to stop by the RBC booth, I will be there between 4:30 and 5 when it opens again. Thank you, and enjoy your day.